I think we sometimes forget how precious our life really is, how much we really mean to the world, and how much value our life really has. The mere fact we're even alive in itself is a miracle. For us to be where we are now, we had to, beat out how many other sperm to even be the one that got to merge with the egg. That in itself is a miracle. And that kind of shows the fact that we're here today is a blessing. It's something that is not worth taking for granted. I know a lot of people personally, and also you see a lot of people on the internet talking about how their life is in despair, or they're going through things which makes them feel like it's not really worth it, or they don't know how to improve, and they feel like they're stuck kind of in a cycle. And a lot of the time it's understandable, because in the moment we feel that negativity. We feel as if we don't deserve it. We feel as if what is taking place in our current life and our situation, it isn't worth carrying on, maybe. And all while those emotions are valid and are real, I think if we really sit back and think about the ability that we have to experience, the ability we have to even enjoy little things, and once we realize how precious those things are, we will start to realize that some of the things that might be taking place in our life are not the major issue. They're not as big as of a problem as it seems. I think when we really sit back and look at the situation we're in, we realize that we are truly blessed to experience life. We are truly blessed to be able to be in the present, to be able to understand and feel emotions. Sometimes we forget that the fact we can even feel, the fact that we can have that ability for our emotions to change and our feelings to change because of little things, that in itself is amazing. The fact that our brain is confined to be able to do those type of things. And I just believe that once we really start to appreciate and start to understand how valuable our life really is, little things that sometimes we get the best of us, we will start to realize that in the grand scheme of things, in the totality of our life, they don't matter. They don't have the element, they don't have the scale to deserve to affect our well-being, affect how we feel as a person. And I think a lot of the time, the way we feel stems from things such as fear and overthinking, and stems from things that in reality sometimes aren't in our control, or no matter what, are always going to be there. I know many people who struggle with overthinking, pardon me. And in reality, overthinking is something that everyone's gone through. Some people are improving, maybe not doing as much. Some people might do it to a large degree. But I think overthinking takes away the experience of life. I think we should be able to live through our eyes and not through our mind. Live through our emotions and not live through our thoughts. And I think a lot of the time we get stuck in our own mind, and we kind of take away the joy and the love that we have for just simply being, for just simply living. I know I have one friend who I know for the past few years has struggled with certain things, and a lot of it came from overthinking and fear, and kind of that type of emotions and feelings confined them into a space where they couldn't really progress and couldn't really enjoy the little things. It had to be something major had to happen in order to kind of feel joy and feel happiness. And I know now that person is improving and they're doing what they can do to feel better. But a lot of times when we're going through those moments of fear and anxiety and overthinking, we look for external validation to kind of feel internally pleasant and internally happy. And the issue is that's a cycle that we're never able to get out of. We can't get out of because we're stuck. Because external validation or external happiness will never fill the internal happiness that we need. For example, we might find another partner that we feel like solves our issues, solves our problems, but then it comes to a certain point where that relationship won't last or won't carry on, because we realize that for that short amount of time, that external factor satisfied and joined and helped our internal validation or internal feelings or emotions. But it comes to a point where that hole that is filled starts to degrade again and starts to become empty. I feel that we don't realize that we're stuck in those cycles sometimes. And for a lot of people, it takes a long time for them to realize that a change needs to happen. But nothing can change unless you change yourself, unless you work on yourself, and unless you kind of build what you want to build as a person, as an identity. Who do you want to be? And at the end of the day, in the grand scheme of things, it's easier said than done. You know, it's very difficult to get out of the kind of the cycle of overthinking and the cycle of fear, because we're naturally surrounded by it. You know, it's everywhere that we look. We look at social media and we will see, you know, we'll see someone else doing better, or we'll see people who are in the same place as us. And that feeding and that kind of looking at other people in the same place kind of validates the emotions we have, which kind of makes it harder for us to then get out of them. And I feel that a lot of the time, people struggle with those type of things because they don't understand how to look past it. You know, I always think of it in a way of, we're looking in the distance, but it gets to a point where you can't look further. Your vision is impaired because all you can see is that wall, that barrier that's blocking you from progressing even further. And by kind of feeding into that type of emotions through social media and through other things that validate the way you're feeling or make you feel like what you're feeling is being seen, that wall basically gets higher and higher, that barrier gets higher and higher for you to even try and progress and try and get further along. I think that with due time and with patience, slowly people start to realize that they need to make a change, or they have to do something in order to become who they aspire to be. And a lot of the time, I think the main issue comes from not being in the present. You know, sometimes when we feel the way we feel, we may look at the past and see how we used to be, or how happy we used to be, or everything that we loved about what was in the past, and our mind is fixated on that. Or we might look in the future and see what we want to become, and see what we aspire to be in a certain amount of time, let's say. But that hope is the thing that keeps us going, but that hope can only last for so long. And a lot of the time we're looking in the past and we're looking in the future for what we either were or what we want to become, that we forget the significance of the present, and forget the significance of who we are today. And in reality, the past and the future on their own aren't things. They can't exist on their own. And so the present always exists. In the past, the emotions that you're looking back upon, the emotions that you're cherishing and wishing you once had, were all once in the present. In the future, the emotions you're looking to have, when you feel those emotions that you eventually will reach, that those emotions will be felt in the present. Once we start to realize that the present is as important as it is, we will be able to make those steps in order to become who we want to become. I think people forget how valuable the present is. And I think that kind of comes from things such as just being caught up in life sometimes. Sometimes it's as simple as that. Sometimes, you know, we're too focused on other things. You know, life is busy, life moves fast. And that kind of takes away from just appreciating the moment that you have, appreciating the moment you're in. And also, I think some of it stems from social media. You know, a lot of the time we look at other people's stories, we look at other people's journeys, that we forget our own path. We forget about ourselves. We're so invested in other people's lives that we bat an eye to who we are. We never look in the mirror and look at ourselves and question, how can we do better? Sometimes we're too busy looking at how other people are doing. And I think in order to really become who you want to become and really become who you aspire to be, you just have to understand that things such as overthinking or fear, they will always be there in elements, but it's just trying to lower the quantity of fear that you have, lower the quantity of overthinking that you do. And even though, as I said before, it's easier said than done, once you start to realize that these things are inevitable, they start to lose control over who you are as a person. They start to lose control over what you can do. Once you start to realize that overthinking can also be positive. And once we realize that and use it to strengthen ourselves, we will start to realize that we can really do and really be who we want to be. You know, a lot of the time fear holds us back from doing many things, not even things such as simple as approaching someone. Or, you know, you might see someone that you've been looking up to in public, but you're too scared to go up to them, and you will lose out on that feeling of meeting someone that means something to you in a certain way. You know, they might have been your favorite TV show character, or they might have been someone who inspires you. Or in other instances where you might think you see the love of your life, but you're too scared to approach someone, you're too scared to fear of rejection, that you hold yourself back and take away and strip away that possibility of the unknown. I think that's also something else that for many people they struggle with. The fact that life is unknown and it's uncertain, I think, shies a lot of people away from things they could do, from the reality of life. And it's understandable, but I think, once people start to realize that these things are always going to kind of be looming, these things are always going to be there. It's just about how can you use these things to benefit yourself, to improve yourself. Once you kind of understand that, it's going to be part of your journey, but how can you make it a beneficial journey instead of a negative journey? How can you turn something that's negative into something positive? And that's something I spoke about actually on an interview I had recently, which is on Luke Randall's fitness page. It's about how can you take negative energy and shift it into positive energy? How can you take your overthinking and use that positively? How can you take the fear that you feel but try and shift that and turn it into something that can benefit you? And it's all about just the way you perceive things. It's all about the way you decide to see the world. I think we forget sometimes how valuable our mind is, how strong the ability is we have to think. Sometimes we take it for granted that the brain we have, we take for granted how smart and clever we actually can be. And once we realize that we really can control the way we live life, we really can control the way we perceive life, we can start to understand that everything's in your hands. A lot of times as I said before, we look for external things to validate us feelings, or look for external things in order to feel good. But once you realize everything's in your hands, and once you understand that everything's in your control, you'll start to realize that the life you want to live is possible. The life you want to live is attainable. You just have to understand that, what you do is what will succeed, is what will happen. And once you realize that everything you're doing now is in your hands, everything that's in the future that you want to reach is in your hands. Once you have that realization, once you have that epiphany, you'll start to realize that you can improve, you can get better, and that the things such as overthinking or fear can go away in terms of how large they are and in terms of the way they feel for you before. You can take that negativity away from overthinking or fear and turn it into kind of positivity and stem it into a new type of light. And I really just think that that's so important. And I think once we start to realize that as people, I think we can only go up from there. We can only benefit. But it's just all about kind of being in the moment, being in the present, and kind of realizing and understanding that you are in control of your own destiny. Your destiny. You are in control of your own destiny. Once you realize that in order to change, you have to change. In order for there to be change, you have to change it. Once you realize that, from there you can only go further and only get better. And this is something that I think I kind of realized earlier the other day, because the past few days I've found myself on my phone, wasting time and scrolling on social media, not doing things that benefit me, and kind of that then led into things such as thinking, okay, I'm not doing enough with my time, I'm not gonna achieve this, I'm not gonna do this. But once I realized that actually I'm saying these things, but in reality I can still do these other things, I can do this, it's just in my hands. It's just I need to understand that I need to use my time valuably instead of use my time to do things that don't benefit me. Once you realize that, and once you really push through with that, you'll start to understand that anything you want to achieve is possible, in terms of better mental health, or in terms of getting in shape, or in terms of wanting to do music or film or whatever you aspire to do. Once you start to realize that it's in your hands, in your control, you realize you can do everything. And I think that's what is the most important thing when it comes to understanding life and understanding how to kind of progress and do what you need to do. I feel like I've been talking for a while now, so I'm gonna leave it there. I hope I hope this helped you with kind of whatever struggle you were going through. I hope this kind of fulfilled what you needed to hear. But once you understand that everything's in your hands, only you can stop yourself. Otherwise, you're going to go far. Thank you for watching. Love.